Alright guys, and today we're going to be talking about BRIEG. As you guys know, he is available from the new Adventures path that they just added. If I show you guys very quickly because you're unaware, if you actually go to the right now where Adventures path is, if you're new, it's always there. If you completed all the old ones, it actually disappeared. But now you'll see that there's 3 new heroes path, 1, 2, and 3. And the first one by completing all of these quests, which will also give you a ton of goodies, which will actually help your account progression. If you're new to the game, or even if you have been playing for a long time, these are always just good things to have. If you've been playing for a while, you're probably not actively trying to complete this, kind of like what I'm doing, but if you need BRIEG, he's available here from completing all these quests, and he's super good. We're going to talk about why. If I actually go back to my BRIEG and show you guys what he actually does and why he is so powerful. So this is BRIEG, very super powerful unit overall for PVE content. For PvP, you're not going to really ever use him. Some people like to use him as a unit that can snipe out like stealth units, because you'll see that his S3 can actually target random units if you actually S1. Not random, but the enemy with the highest attack. So this makes it so that you can snipe like Spectre Tenebrias. But let's actually talk about his skills really quickly before we discuss that. So his S3 is a single target attack that will actually dispel all buffs and can also decrease defense and speed for 2 turns. This is extremely powerful for Expedition, especially because speed decreases work on the bosses in Expedition, which is very strong because Expedition actually is going to be a game mode where you're trying to get as many points as possible by dealing the most damage as possible, and by decreasing the amount of speed of the boss, you'll actually have more turn cycles, because the timer on Expedition to see how many points you can get isn't really a time thing, it's based on how many turns the boss gets. So this is super powerful to decrease the speed of the Expedition boss, because you're basically getting more turns in before the timer runs out. And also this has a decreased defense, which is insane, right? This will actually just make it so that he can not only cripple the speed of the enemy boss, but also defense break the boss. And you're going to see that he can pretty much solo defense break the boss, which is amazing if we look at his other skills. And also this will dispel all buffs, very good in like Light Expedition and pretty much every Expedition where the boss gets a buff. And also you'll see that he gets increased effectiveness by 50% of this attack, which is amazing. You can be new to the game, you can have 0% effectiveness on him, and still, more times than not, you're still going to be able to land this with most of the effects. And if you've been playing for a while and you farm some gear, just put him on 30% effectiveness, and he'll be pretty good for like pretty much all the content in PvE. I'd say like 99% of it, right? 95 maybe. Some areas of content you'll need more, like advent side story and stuff like that. But for just expeditions and hunts, just having 30% effectiveness on him is enough for expeditions, and 15% will be enough for hunts. And this will scale with his max health. So this does decent damage, but nothing crazy unless you put him on a full damage build, which you probably will not want to do, and we'll talk about his builds later on. Next we have his S2. So his S2 is going to be a barrier to your team for 3 turns, and Perception. Perception gives you extra crit chance and crit damage, making it so that he's even easier to build. Even if you build him on full tank, he's just getting extra stats, which is very nice. If you build him on like a damage build, you can actually put him on 85% crit chance, which is very nice. He also will gain an extra turn, and this barrier will scale with his health. And of course, if you soul burn it for 10 souls, you'll actually get a stronger barrier. And this is very nice because this will actually make it so that your cooldown on your S3 is actually 4 turns technically, because you're always going to be S2ing before S3ing, because this cooldown is actually lower. And the best part about this is that it gives you 50 fighting spirit. Now, he actually has a fighting spirit mechanic, and you'll see in his S1, single target attack that will give him CR, and his damage will scale with his max health. But however, if he actually attacks and he's at full fighting spirit, so at the end of the turn when he S1s, if he's full fighting spirit, he will activate his S3 on a enemy with the highest attack, and this will also cleanse him or dispel him of all debuffs, and his fighting spirit will of course reset to 0. So very powerful, right? You'll see that he's getting a ton of S3s off even though he's not using his S3. Just by cycling very fast, he'll actually be able to just constantly defense break over and over, right? You S3, right? Boss's defense broken for 2 turns, their speed is down. You'll most likely get 3 or 4 turns before that defense break and speed down runs out. Then you S2 into like S1 like 2 or 3 times, right? And then you'll be able to activate your S3 again on the boss, and then your S3 will come off cooldown and you can use it again. So you kind of get what I'm saying. He's just constantly using his S3 on the boss, which is very powerful. As a result, all you really need to do is decrease the cooldown of his S3. The barrier strength is nice to have on his S2, but doesn't really matter too much, right? You're usually going to have a healer with him, and having the CR on his S1 is nice as well, but, if for the bare minimum, for PvE content, because PvE you want to minimize your investment as much as you can to save your resources for PvP, I would say, you know, just having 3 Mologoras or skill investment into his S3 for the turn cooldown. So pretty simple in how his skills work, right? He's just a constant defense breaker, speed down, all that good stuff. Now let's actually talk about his build, and then we'll talk about, you know, where you can use him, right? So there's a lot of builds you can use on him. Mostly you're just going to put him on leftover gear, or like PvE gear as people would call it, and there's going to be some stats you want to shoot for. I would say you want at least 23,000 health, at least 1,300, ideally 1,400 defense. Of course, like, you know, you could have lower health of defense depending on the content, but because I do run some Soul Weaver less teams, so no healer teams, relying on Bloodstone on my Rangers, I do have him at a higher bulk. But honestly, you can probably get away with anything like 20,000 health and like 1,200 defense or something like that. Should be fine. Now for speed, it's really up to you and your gear. Of course, the faster he is, the more defense breaks he'll get, and more spells and, you know, speed downs. I would say anything above 200 is fine. You can easily obtain this by actually having him on a speed set and just like speed main stat boots. And you will need some speed and some other pieces here, but not too much because his base speed is like pretty high for a knight. I think it's like 110, right? And then of course after that, all you really need is effectiveness. And I said 30% is fine. I'm missing 1%. Oh well, who cares? You know, 29% is fine. If you want to use him for expeditions, you need him at 30%. If you want to use him in like Wyvern, where he's very good, 15% is fine. So if you're new to the game, have him at 15% effectiveness and he's good to go. Even if he's at 0%, you'll still land your debuff most of the time, so it's fine, right? And for artifact, you want him on Aureus to actually soak more damage for your team. And for sets, speed set for sure. The other set doesn't really matter too much. You can have him on effectiveness set, you can have him on health set like I have, or defense set, or just like a broken set where you're running just 2 random pieces that are good. Doesn't really matter too much because he is so stat like not hungry. What do I say? He's not hungry for stats, right? So he's very flexible. If you want to build him on a more damage build, this is going to be more for expeditions to score higher. You want 100% crit chance total, so you want to put him at 85 because remember his S2 gives him 15%. And then you want to maintain a decent amount of bulk. You still want 30% effectiveness, and then you want to actually put some into crit damage. So a lot more stat intensive, but it is what you need to do to actually score higher in expeditions. But most of the time, even if you have him on just this plain build, if you have good damage dealers around him, you can one turn or one phase the expedition bosses by yourself, which makes it very easy. Now, Brieg must have unit, I'd say, for new players and even old players because you can use him in 4 out of the 5 expeditions. Everything but Earth Expedition, he is the best tank in the game right now. Just because he is super tanky, does very good damage for a tank, and also can defense break, you know, speed down, which is amazing, like I mentioned. And you can also use him in Wyvern Hunt, very powerful there. Also very good for Banshee Hunt, also very good for Azimnak Hunt, and also very good for Katie's Hunt. So he's pretty much good in almost every expedition and hunt except for the Earth one. So Golem and Earth Expedition he's not that good in, but everything else he's pretty much one of the best tanks there, if not the best in most cases. And he's also very good in Nightmare Raid. So just amazing unit, also very good in Adventure and Automaton Tower and Abyss. Anywhere you're progressing, if you have him, you'll see that he is just a super broken, overpowered unit for PvE. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is the best build for him overall, but this is the best build for me and probably for the majority of players. And of course, there's going to be better Briegs out there. I literally have him on just random pieces that I have left over, and he still does wonders. Even my awakenings, right? I don't even have him fully awakened just because you don't really need it, right? 4 gives you health, and 5 gives you, or 5 gives you health, and 6 gives you effectiveness. Honestly, you can go up to 5 Star Awakening, and it's probably very good for the health percent. But I didn't want to invest any catalysts, so I stopped at the speed boost, which is probably the most important. And then I just didn't use any catalysts, and he still is amazing. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys have your Brieg built on, or where you use him in, or what you think of him as a unit, and I will see you guys next video.